Why would a man install 3 deadbolts on the inside of every single room in his own house? Not the front door, not the back door. Every room, the bathroom, the bedroom, even the pantry. Uncle Silas Whitmore lived alone on that mountain for 22 years. And when they found his body last October, sitting upright in his chair, the sheriff said the same thing everyone said. Old man, bad heart, nothing more to it. But 18-year-old Marigold Vance was about to learn the truth. She was broke. She was alone. Her stepmother had just thrown her out of the house on her 18th birthday, with nothing but a suitcase and a photograph of the mother, who vanished when Goldie was 12 years old. Then the letter arrived. Heavy cream paper, a lawyer's seal, and inside a single brass key. If you're reading this, her uncle had written, they've already found me. Trust no one, Goldie, not even the ones who smile. That key would unlock a cabin buried deep in the Cascade Mountains. And inside that cabin, a steel box beneath the floorboards. Coded diary, a photograph of her mother standing outside a bank the night $5 million disappeared. And a secret that would put a sniper's crosshair squarely on Marigold Vance's back. She thought her life couldn't get any worse. She was wrong. So terribly, terribly wrong. The letter came on a Tuesday. That mattered later. Marigold Vance would remember it was a Tuesday, because Tuesdays were payday at the bakery. And payday meant she could afford one thing that week that wasn't stale bread from the discount bin. One thing. That week it was toothpaste. She stood at the mailbox in the strip mall parking lot, with the little tube of Crest clutched in her fist like it was gold. Because in her world it kind of was. And there, right there in the metal slot marked with the number 7. The letter, heavy paper, cream-colored, a lawyer's seal in dark red wax. She almost didn't open it, because Goldie Vance had learned, at 18 years old, that letters like this never brought good news. Letters like this brought bills. Or bad news. Or someone telling you they were sorry. But there was always a but. She sat in her rusted Honda Civic with the engine off, because gas was $3.80 a gallon, and she was down to a quarter tank. She held the letter in her lap, and she stared. Whitmore. Silas Whitmore. That name. That name. She hadn't heard that name in 8 years. Her mama used to whisper it sometimes, late at night, when she thought Goldie was asleep. Silas. My brother Silas. He's out there somewhere. He's watching over us. But then Mama vanished. And Uncle Silas became just another ghost in a house full of them. Now the letter said he was dead. And Goldie was, apparently, the only living blood relative he had left. The tears came before she could stop them. She didn't even know why she was crying. She hadn't seen the man since she was 5 years old. She barely remembered his face. Something about a beard. Something about tired blue eyes. And a voice that sounded like her mother's when he laughed. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her denim jacket. Then she read the letter again. Sole beneficiary. Property in King County. Personal effects. Please contact Finch and Associates to arrange transfer. There was a phone number and a key. She hadn't noticed the key at first. It had slipped down inside the envelope, wedged against the seam. She shook it out into her palm. Heavy, brass, old, green at the edges from oxidation, and a folded note, handwritten. Her hands shook as she opened it. Goldie, if you are reading this, they have already found me. Trust no one. Not the lawyer. Not the neighbor. Not the man who smiles the widest. Come alone. Bring nothing. The cabin will tell you the rest. I loved your mother. I love you, Uncle Silas. She sat in the car for a long time. The sun set. The parking lot lights buzzed on. Someone came out of the drugstore across the street with a bag full of birthday balloons for a child who was, presumably, loved. Goldie stared at her phone. $14.32 in the bank. An eviction notice from Mrs. Kowalski taped to the door of the studio apartment she wouldn't have for much longer. A stepmother named Cordelia, who had, exactly 11 days ago, on Goldie's 18th birthday, packed her a single suitcase and set it on the front porch. "I've done my duty," Cordelia had said, coffee in one hand, cigarette in the other, not even looking at her. "Your father would be proud," Goldie had said. Cordelia had laughed. A short, hard sound. "Your father," she said, "was a fool." That was the last thing Cordelia Vance ever said to her. Now Goldie held a brass key in one hand and a letter from a dead uncle in the other. And for the first time in 8 years, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Hope, or something that looked like it. She drove to the address on the letter the next morning. Finch and Associates, downtown Tacoma. 4th floor of a building that smelled like carpet cleaner and old cigarettes. The lawyer was a man named Harold Finch. Tall, thin, a face like a candle that had been burning too long. He didn't shake her hand. He gestured to a chair. "Miss Vance," he said, "your uncle left specific instructions." "Okay." "He wanted you to see the property yourself. Before any decisions are made. He wanted you to see it alone." "Where is it?" "The Cascades. About 4 hours east. Off the main highway." "Is it worth anything?" Harold Finch paused. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And she saw something in his eyes that she didn't understand at the time. It looked almost like pity. "Miss Vance," he said, "I have been Silas Whitmore's attorney for 22 years. I have never been to that cabin. I do not know what is in it. I do not want to know. Your uncle was a very careful man. Do you understand what I'm saying?" She didn't, but she nodded anyway. He slid a manila envelope across the desk. "Directions. Deed. Contact information for the county." "And Miss Vance?" "Yes. If anyone else comes asking about that property, do not tell them where it is. Do not tell them your name. Do not answer the door." She almost laughed. It was the kind of thing a person said in a movie. Not to an 18-year-old girl who was sleeping in a Honda Civic and eating day-old bagels for dinner. But Harold Finch wasn't smiling, so she didn't laugh. She took the envelope. She left the office. She got in her car, and she drove east. Interstate 90 climbs into the Cascade Mountains like a slow prayer. Goldie had never been this far from Tacoma. The city fell away behind her, and the trees rose up on either side of the highway. Douglas firs. Big ones. Old ones. Trees that had been standing before her grandmother was born. She thought about her mother. She always thought about her mother when she was alone. Delilah Vance. That was her name. Long dark hair. Green eyes. A laugh that made strangers turn around in restaurants. Delilah who baked apple pie every Sunday. Delilah who sang hymns in the shower. Delilah who taught Goldie to pray before bed and to say thank you to the cashier and to always look people in the eye when you spoke to them. Delilah who disappeared on a rainy night in October when Goldie was 12 years old. She just left. That was what everyone said. The police, the neighbors, even Goldie's father, who had loved Delilah more than anything in this world. She left, sweetheart. He had told her, sitting on the edge of her bed, his face gray, his eyes empty. Sometimes mamas leave. It's not your fault. But Goldie had never believed that, because you don't leave your daughter without saying goodbye. Not when you had tucked her in every night for 12 years. Not when you had kissed her forehead just that morning and said, "I love you, my Goldie girl, more than the sun loves the sky." You don't just leave, unless something, or someone, makes you. The Honda hit a pothole, and Goldie snapped back to the present. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. She loosened her grip. She breathed out slowly. Focus. Just get to the cabin. Just see what's there. She took the exit at Snoqualmie Pass. The highway narrowed. Then it became a 2-lane road. Then it became a gravel road. Then it became something that could barely be called a road at all. Just 2 ruts through the pines. Her Honda protested. The suspension groaned. Branches slapped the windshield. And then, suddenly, the trees opened up. And there it was. The cabin. She killed the engine. The silence was immediate and absolute. Not city silence. Not even the quiet of a suburban street at 3 in the morning. This was mountain silence. The kind of silence that has weight. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes you feel like something is listening. Because something probably was. The cabin sat in a clearing at the edge of the tree line. Dark cedar logs, blackened by weather. A pitched roof sagging with moss and pine needles. Small windows. And here was the strange thing. Every single window had heavy iron bars over it. Not decorative bars. Prison bars. A rusted Ford Bronco sat in the yard, half swallowed by weeds. The tires were flat. The paint was peeling. But the driver's door was open, just slightly, as if someone had gotten out in a hurry 20 years ago and never come back. Goldie got out of her car. Her sneakers crunched on the gravel. The sound was too loud. She walked toward the porch. The steps groaned under her weight. The front door was solid oak, reinforced with steel bands. It was chained and padlocked, with the biggest padlock she had ever seen. The kind of padlock you use on a shipping container. Or a fortress. Her hands shook as she took the brass key from her pocket. It fit. Of course it fit. She turned it. Clunk. The shackle sprang open. She unwound the chain. It was heavy, cold. She dropped it on the porch and it made a sound like a body falling. She winced. Then she pushed the door. It didn't move. She pushed harder. Nothing. She braced her shoulder against it and shoved with everything she had. The door swung open with a shriek that echoed through the trees. And then the smell hit her. Pine, damp wood, and something else. Something sharp and metallic underneath. Something that made the back of her throat close up. She pulled her jacket collar over her nose. She stepped inside. She reached for a light switch. Flicked it. Nothing. Right. Off the grid. Of course. She turned on the flashlight on her cracked phone. The beam cut a small circle through the darkness. She swept it across the room, and her breath caught. The walls. The walls were covered in maps. Topographical maps. Road maps. Hand-drawn maps. Maps of the county. Maps of the state. Maps of things she couldn't identify. And all of them were connected by strings. Red strings. Black strings. Yellow strings. Crisscrossing the room like a spider's web. Circles drawn in marker. Question marks. Names crossed out. Dates. Blackwood. October 1998. No. Blackwood. March 2001. No. Blackwood. Never. The word Blackwood was written on the wall in 3 different places. Underlined. Circled. Once even scratched into the wood with what looked like a knife. Goldie's stomach turned. What were you doing out here, Uncle Silas? She stepped further into the room. Her flashlight caught something on the floor. A book. Then another. Then dozens of them, stacked in towers reaching almost to the ceiling. She moved into the kitchen. The counters were lined with empty tin cans. Meticulously washed. Meticulously stacked. Labels facing outward. Dozens of them. Maybe 100. All in perfect rows. She turned in a slow circle. And that was when she saw them. The locks. Every interior door had them. The bedroom door. The bathroom door. Even the closet door. 3 heavy deadbolts each. All installed on the inside. Her uncle hadn't been trying to keep the world out. He had been trying to keep something, or someone, from getting to him inside his own house. The realization made her knees go weak. She sat down on the edge of a wooden chair. The chair creaked. She stared at the deadbolts on the closet door across the room. 3 of them. Big brass ones. Recently oiled. Uncle Silas had been afraid. Not just cautious. Not just eccentric. Afraid. Of what? She stood up. She had to keep moving. If she stopped moving, she would start crying, and if she started crying, she didn't think she would stop. She walked into what must have been the living room. There was a fireplace against the far wall, cold now, black with soot. Above the mantel was a single book. Standing upright, alone, as if it were on display. She squinted. Her flashlight beam wobbled. Walden, by Henry David Thoreau. Of course. A hermit's Bible. The manifesto of the man who left society to live alone in the woods. She almost smiled. Then her foot bumped something. She looked down. An oak desk. Massive. Heavy. Solid. It dominated the center of the room, positioned strangely, not against a wall, but out in the open. Like an island. She walked around it, ran her fingers along the surface. The wood was warm to the touch, which was strange, because everything else in the cabin was cold. She opened the drawers. Empty. All of them. Stripped bare. Not a pen. Not a paperclip. Not a single scrap of paper. Her heart sank. Because this was it, wasn't it? This was her grand inheritance. A rotting box in the woods, owned by a paranoid recluse, who had chained himself into his own house and died alone. There was nothing here to sell. Nothing to save her. Nothing to keep the wolves from the door. Just nothing. She sat down in the heavy leather chair behind the desk. It squeaked, and something inside her broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, the way a thin sheet of ice breaks when you step on it. Because she was so tired. She was so tired of being tired. She was so tired of pretending she was okay. So tired of counting change at the register. So tired of choosing between food and gas. So tired of sleeping with one eye open in a Honda Civic in a parking lot. So tired of being nobody's problem. She slammed her fists down on the desk. She screamed. It was an ugly scream. A raw scream. A scream that came from somewhere below her lungs. It filled the cabin. It rattled the windows. It scared a family of ravens from the trees outside, and they burst upward in a black cloud, cawing. When the scream stopped, she was sobbing. She was sobbing for her mother. She was sobbing for her father. She was sobbing for the little girl who used to say her prayers every night and believe that God was listening. She lay her head down on the desk. She closed her eyes, and she heard something, a sound, not from outside, from beneath her. When she had slammed her fists on the desk had shifted. Just a little, just enough, and the sound the desk made was hollow. She sat up. She wiped her face. She listened. She stood up carefully. She stepped back. She looked at the floor. The floorboards under the desk. They were a different color from the rest. Not much, just a shade lighter. And they were clean, not dusty like the rest of the floor. Recently walked on. Recently disturbed. She dropped to her knees. She crawled under the desk. She ran her fingers along the seams of the wide oak planks. Most were tight, snug, but one section about 2 feet square had a hairline gap. She dug her fingernails into it. She pulled. Nothing. She scrambled up. She ran to the fireplace. She grabbed the iron poker leaning against the stones. It was heavy, old. The tip was sharp. She rushed back. She jammed the poker into the gap. She pushed down with everything she had. Her whole body weight. The wood groaned. She pushed harder. Crack. The board gave way. She threw the poker aside. She pulled the plank up with her hands. Then another, and a rush of cold air hit her face. Not just cold. Ancient. Damp. It smelled like earth. Like moss. Like something that had been sealed away for a very long time. She aimed the flashlight into the hole. There, nestled in a bed of dry gravel between the floor joists. A steel box. Military green. Scratched. Dented. About the size of a shoebox but twice as heavy. A combination lock built into the side. For digits. She reached down. Her fingers touched the cold metal. She hesitated. Because some part of her, some deep old part, knew that whatever was in this box was going to change everything. Once she opened it, she could not close it again. She thought of her mother, Delilah, standing at the kitchen sink, humming, the morning light in her hair. You know what my mama used to say to me, Goldie girl? What, mama? She used to say. The truth is a door, and sometimes we spend our whole lives standing in front of it. Too afraid to knock. Goldie took a breath. She lifted the box out of the hole. It was heavier than she expected. She had to use both hands. She set it on the desk with a thud that shook the whole cabin. She stared at the combination dial. She didn't know the numbers. She didn't know her uncle's birthday. She didn't know her mother's birthday. She didn't know anything about him at all. But then she looked closer at the lock, and she saw something. The metal around the dial was dented, struck, repeatedly, as if someone had tried to break it open before, as if her uncle himself had known that whoever came looking for this box would not know the combination. As if he had wanted her to break it. She picked up the iron poker. She raised it above her head. She brought it down. Clang. The metal groaned. The box shuddered. The lock held. She swung again. Clang. Again. Clang. 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 Her arms burned. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She was sweating despite the cold. She was crying, and she didn't know when she had started. On the 7th strike, the lock cracked. She dropped the poker. She wrenched the twisted latch open. She threw back the lid. And she stared. She had expected money, gold bars, stacks of $100 bills. Instead she saw a jumble of things that made no sense. A thick leather-bound ledger. Old, the edges frayed, full of cramped handwriting. A stack of Polaroid photographs, wrapped in rubber bands. A tarnished silver locket. And, on top of everything, a single folded newspaper clipping. Yellowed with age. Laminated. Someone had cared enough to preserve it. She picked up the clipping first. She unfolded it. Her flashlight trembled on the page. The headline was in bold black ink. Pacific Trust Bank Vault Breached. 5 million in bearer bonds stolen. Inside job suspected. October 19, 1997. Bearer bonds. She didn't know what those were, but her eyes moved to the photograph beneath the headline. A grainy black and white shot of a bank vault. The door blown open, papers scattered on the floor, and below that, a smaller photograph, grainy, taken from a security camera. A figure in a dark hoodie, slim, tall, face turned away, but something about the way the figure stood, the angle of the shoulders, the slight tilt of the head. Goldie's breath caught. She set the clipping down with trembling fingers. She reached for the Polaroids. She pulled off the rubber band. The first photo. A tree with orange paint on the trunk. A number carved into the bark. She flipped to the next. Another tree. Another number. Then a rock formation. Then a stream. Then, her hand froze. The next photograph. A woman. Young. Early 20s. Dark hair pulled back. Green eyes. Standing outside a brick building. Wearing a leather jacket. Holding a heavy canvas duffel bag. The building behind her was Pacific Trust Bank. The date on the bottom of the Polaroid, written in her uncle's spidery hand, was October 18, 1997. The night of the robbery. The woman in the photo was her mother. Goldie's knees gave out. She grabbed the edge of the desk. She lowered herself into the chair. She stared at the photograph. She stared for a long, long time, because it wasn't possible. Her mother, Delilah, the woman who sang hymns in the shower, the woman who taught her to pray, the woman who made apple pie every Sunday. Her mother had been at that bank. Her mother had been holding the bag. Her mother was the thief. Goldie's mind reeled. She tried to remember, tried to piece together what her mother had ever told her about her past. About the years before Goldie was born. About her 20s. But there was nothing. There had always been nothing. Where did you grow up, Mama? Oh, all over, baby. All over. Did you ever get in trouble when you were young? Everybody gets in trouble when they're young, Goldie. That's how you learn to be good. She had always laughed when she said things like that. She had always changed the subject. Goldie set the photograph down. Her hands were shaking, so badly she could barely control them. She picked up the ledger. She opened it. The pages were filled with dates. Times. Strings of numbers and letters that meant nothing. October 14, 1998. CM. The river runs shallow. November 3, 2004. The debt accrues. July 22, 2010. CM. Blackwood pushes north. March 15, 2017. She is gone. God help her. Goldie's finger stopped on that last entry. March 15, 2017. She is gone. God help her. March 15, 2017. That was the night her mother disappeared. Goldie was 12 years old. She remembered the date because it was the day after her school science fair. She had won second place. Her mother had been so proud. They had gone out for ice cream. That was the last time. The last time Goldie saw her mother alive. And Uncle Silas had known. He had known the exact date. He had written it down. He had prayed for her. She is gone. God help her. Goldie closed the ledger with a snap. Her heart was pounding. She felt sick. Her mother had not left. Or maybe she had. But not the way anyone said. Not to start a new life. Not to run from her responsibilities. Something had happened. Something. She picked up the locket. The silver one. She opened it. Inside was a tiny photograph. A little girl. Maybe 6 years old. Blonde curls. A gap-toothed smile. Wearing a Halloween costume. Pumpkin. It was her. It was Goldie. Her mother had given this locket to Uncle Silas. Sometime, somewhere before she vanished. She had given him a picture of her daughter. To remember. To keep safe. Maybe. Or to identify. If it ever came to that. Goldie clutched the locket in her fist. And that was when she heard it. The sound. Outside. Faint at first. Then closer. Tires. On gravel. She froze. She was miles from the highway. Off any map. The lawyer had said the property was isolated. No neighbors. No hikers this time of year. No one was supposed to know she was here. She killed the flashlight. The cabin plunged into blackness. The tires stopped. An engine died. Car door opened. Car door closed. Then, silence. Then, footsteps. On the porch. Heavy. Deliberate. The steps of a man who wasn't in a hurry. Because he wasn't afraid of what was waiting for him inside. Goldie's blood turned to ice. She dropped to the floor. She crawled under the desk. She reached out blindly, and her fingers closed around the iron poker. She held it against her chest. She held her breath. The footsteps stopped at the front door. She heard the jingle of metal on metal. She heard the soft, unmistakable click of a lock being picked. Because the front door was still open. It didn't need picking. But the man on the porch didn't know that. He was being thorough. He was being careful. He was, she realized with a jolt of pure animal terror, being professional. The door swung inward. A flashlight beam. White. Powerful. Not a phone light. A tactical light. It swept the room. It caught the maps on the wall. Caught the stacks of books. Caught the smashed lockbox on the desk. And it stopped. Held there. The man in the doorway made a sound. Low. Under his breath. A single word. Damn it. Then he stepped inside. And the floorboards groaned beneath his weight. Goldie tightened her grip on the poker. She thought of her mother, holding a duffel bag outside a bank in 1997. She thought of her uncle writing prayers in a ledger. She thought of the note. Trust no one. Not even the ones who smile. The man's flashlight swept toward the desk. Toward her. She closed her eyes. She raised the poker. And she waited. The flashlight beam swept over the desk. Over the smashed lockbox. Over the stack of Polaroids fanned out on the wood. Over the photograph of a young woman standing outside a bank in 1997. The man went very still. He was tall. 6'2", maybe 6'3". Dark wool coat that fell to his knees. A day's worth of stubble on his jaw. And a bruise. A bad one. Deep purple. Blooming along the left side of his jawline like a stain. That wouldn't wash out. He looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he spoke. Not to Goldie. He didn't know she was there. He spoke to the empty room. Quietly. Almost to himself. You paranoid old fool. That was when Goldie moved. She burst out from under the desk. Poker raised. screaming a scream that didn't sound like her own voice. The iron cracked against his wrist. The flashlight flew. It hit the floor and rolled. The beam spun. Light spiraled across the walls, across the maps, across the two of them. The man grunted. Not a scream, not even a curse, just a low, controlled grunt of pain, like a man who had been hurt before and knew how to absorb it. Goldie wound up for another swing. She never got it, because he moved, fast, faster than anyone she had ever seen move in her life. He stepped inside her guard. He caught her wrist. He twisted. The poker fell from her fingers. He grabbed her by the front of her denim jacket. He pinned her against the wall. Her back hit the wood, so hard the air left her lungs. "Stop," he said. "Get off me. I'm not going to hurt you. I'll kill you. Kid, let go. Kid, listen." He wasn't shouting. That was the strangest part. His voice was low, level, almost gentle, and his grip on her jacket was firm, but it wasn't tight. His hands weren't hurting her. He was pinning her, not choking her. He was holding her the way you hold a dog that's about to bolt into traffic. For its own good. She kicked him in the shin. He winced. He didn't let go. "Are you done?" he said. "No. Take a breath. Take a breath yourself. Kid, I'm a private investigator." "Sure you are. My name is Ronan Blackwood." She stopped kicking. Not because she believed him, but because she'd seen that word. Blackwood, written on the walls of this cabin in 3 different places. Underlined, circled, once carved into the wood with a knife. Her uncle had been afraid of that name for 20 years, and now the man who wore it was standing 3 inches from her face. She stopped fighting. She went still. He must have felt it, because after a moment he loosened his grip. Then he let go completely. He stepped back. He held up both hands, palms out, the way you approach a wild animal. "I'm going to reach into my coat," he said. "Slow, slow, left inside pocket. That's it." He pulled out a leather wallet, flipped it open, held it up. Private investigator's license. Washington State. His picture on it. Bruised jaw and all. The name matched. She looked at the license. She looked at him. Then she picked up the poker again. "Oh, come on," he said. "Get on your knees." "What? Get on your knees?" He raised his eyebrows. But he did it. He lowered himself to his knees on the dusty floor. Slowly, hands still visible. He was almost as tall on his knees as she was standing. "You're 18, he said. "How do you know?" "Because I know who you are, Marigold Vance. You just turned 18 11 days ago. Your father died in 2023. Your stepmother threw you out of the house. You've been sleeping in a 2004 Honda Civic. You work at a bakery called Sweet Marigold, which is ironic. I noticed that. Was your mother a fan?" She stared at him. She wanted to hit him again. She also wanted to sit down. "How do you know about my mother?" she said. "I don't know about your mother." He paused. "Not yet. What does that mean?" "It means I know your uncle didn't die of a heart attack." The room seemed to tilt. "He was 71 years old," she said. "He lived alone in the woods. He had high blood pressure." The coroner said. The coroner said what he was paid to say. "That's a hell of an accusation. It's a hell of a coincidence." "What is?" Ronan tilted his head, looked at her. "Your uncle," he said, "was about to sell me something. 2 months ago he reached out to me. He said he had evidence that would burn my father's company to the ground. He wanted a payoff. I got the money together. I flew out to meet him. We had a fight." He touched his jaw, lightly, winced. "He didn't trust me," Ronan said. "He said I was too soft, that I still loved the man I was trying to bring down. He said if I couldn't stab my own father in the back, then I couldn't protect his sister." "His sister," Goldie whispered. "Yes." "His sister is my mother." "Yes." "He said he was protecting her?" "He said someone had to." Goldie sat down. Saturday. Right there on the floor of her dead uncle's cabin. The poker slipped from her fingers. She didn't care. She wrapped her arms around her knees, and she stared at Ronan Blackwood, and she waited. Because there was more. There had to be more. "Who is your father?" she said. "Alistair Blackwood." "Should I know that name?" "You will. He owns Blackwood Properties. Third largest real estate developer on the West Coast. He's been trying to buy this ridge for 5 years. Why? Because there's neodymium under it. Rare earth mineral. Billions of dollars worth. And your uncle owned the mineral rights. He was the only holdout. 14 other properties on this mountain sold. Silas Whitmore refused. "So your father killed him?" Ronan flinched. "Just a little, but she saw it." "I don't know that," he said. "I can't prove it, yet. But I know he sent men. And I know your uncle was alive on Tuesday, and dead on Friday, and in between he called me twice." "What did he say?" Ronan looked at her. "He said if anything happened to him, if a girl showed up here with a brass key, I was to protect her with my life." The wind moved outside. A branch scraped the window. Goldie flinched. She thought about the note. Trust no one. Not even the ones who smile. But Ronan Blackwood wasn't smiling. He looked exhausted. He looked afraid. He looked like a man who had made too many wrong choices too fast, and was trying to make one right one, before the ground gave way beneath him. She had seen that look before. In the mirror. "Get up," she said. He got up. He rubbed his wrist where she had hit him. There was already a knot forming. "You hit hard," he said. "I had a lot of practice." "On what?" "Life." That made him smile. Just for a second. A tired, crooked half-smile. Then it was gone. They talked for an hour. They sat at the oak desk, with the smashed lockbox between them, and the flashlight rolling gently on its side. Because Ronan wouldn't let her light a candle. He said candles could be seen, through the cracks in the window bars, from a mile away. He told her about his father. He told her about the years he had spent as chief financial officer of Blackwood Properties. About the numbers that didn't add up. About the shell companies. About the offshore accounts. About the day 3 years ago when he had walked into a board meeting with a folder full of proof. And how the board had laughed at him. "They laughed," he said. "Grown men. Men I had known since I was a boy. They laughed at me, and then they told me if I ever brought it up again, they would tell the world I was on drugs. That I was unstable. They had a whole file. They had prepared it." "Your own father?" "My own father. That's..." She didn't have a word. "Yeah," Ronan said quietly. "It's that." She showed him the ledger. He flipped through it, frowning. "This is a book cipher," he said. "A what?" "A book cipher. You use a specific book as a decoder. Each entry references a page, a line, a word. Without the right book, it's gibberish. With the right book, it's the whole world." "How do we find the right book?" He looked around. The stacks reached to the ceiling. "Paranoid people don't pick random books," he said. "They pick something that means something. Something central to who they are. What was your uncle obsessed with?" She looked around. She looked at the maps. She looked at the survival gear. She looked at the fireplace. And at the book above the mantel. Standing alone. Standing upright. "Walden," she said. His eyes followed hers. "Of course." He crossed the room. Reached up. Took the book down. It was old. The leather binding was cracked. The pages were soft with handling. He opened it. Some of the words were underlined. Some of the margins had notes in her uncle's cramped hand. He brought it back to the desk. "Read me the first entry," he said. She opened the ledger. October 14th, 1998. CM. The river runs shallow. Ignore that. That's a summary. The code is underneath. Look for the numbers. She looked closer. Sure enough, in the margin in tiny pencil. Page for 2. Line 7. Word 3. He flipped to page 42. He counted 7 lines down. He counted 3 words in. He said the word out loud. Delilah. Goldie's hand flew to her mouth. That's my mother's name, she whispered. I know. They worked together, silent mostly. The only sounds were the rustle of pages, and their breathing. Ronan read the numbers. Goldie wrote the words down in a shaky, careful hand on the back of a torn envelope she had found in a drawer. Word by word, line by line. A sentence began to form, then another, then a full page. And when she read what she had written, she had to sit back in the chair, because the world had, once again, become a place she did not recognize. Delilah was not who she pretended to be. Delilah worked for the government. The bank job was a setup. She was inside. She was one of them. The bonds were bait. When the operation went bad, she disappeared to protect me and the child. I have hidden her share here in case she ever needs to buy her way out. If she is dead, then this money belongs to Marigold. Only Marigold. Trust no man who claims to know her. Trust no man whose name is Blackwood. Goldie read it 3 times. She read it out loud on the 3rd pass. Ronan sat very still while she read. When she finished, he closed the book. Your mother, he said, was not a bank robber. No. She was an agent. An agent. For the government. Probably FBI. My mother was FBI. You keep saying that. I need to keep saying that. Give me a minute, please. He gave her a minute. She sat in the leather chair. She stared at the sentence she had written on the back of the envelope. She stared at the photograph of her mother in the leather jacket outside the bank. Delilah was not who she pretended to be, but she was who she had pretended to be. That was the thing. She had been the mama who sang hymns, and the mama who baked apple pie, and the mama who tucked in her daughter every night for 12 years. She had just also been something else, something bigger, something that took her away. Ronan gave her water from a bottle in his coat pocket. She drank it. Her hands had stopped shaking. She didn't know when. Okay, she said. So where is it? The money. You don't want to talk about your mother? I want to find the treasure, because if there is money, then there is leverage. And if there is leverage, then maybe, somewhere, my mother is still alive, and maybe I can find her. So no, I don't want to talk about my mother. I want to find the money, please. He nodded slowly. Okay. They went back to the ledger. They decoded the next passage. It was a riddle. The weight of the roof rests upon the sins of my sister. Goldie stared at the words. The weight of the roof, she said. Ronan looked up, followed her gaze. The cabin had a heavy pitched ceiling. It sagged in the middle, from decades of snow and moss. The whole structure was held up by a single massive cedar post that ran from the floor to the peak, right in the center of the living room. Ronan walked to the post. He pressed his palm against it. He tapped it with his knuckles. The sound was solid. He tapped higher. Still solid. He tapped near the ceiling. Hollow. Get me an axe, he said. There was one leaning against the fireplace. She brought it to him. He handed it back to her. You should do it, he said. He was your uncle. She hesitated. Then she took the axe. It was heavy. Too heavy. Her arms trembled just holding it. But she gripped it hard. She lifted it. She swung. The blade bit into the cedar with a solid thwack. Wood chips flew. She pulled it free. She swung again. Thwack. Again. Thwack. She was crying. She didn't know when she had started. Tears ran down her face, and her arms were burning, and her breath was ragged. But she kept swinging, because 8 years. 8 years she had believed her mother had abandoned her. 8 years she had gone to sleep, with that lie in her chest like a stone. And now the stone was moving. Thwack! The blade broke through the outer shell. Ronan grabbed her arm. Stop! She stopped, panting. She lowered the axe. He knelt down. He pulled a knife from his belt. He worked the blade into the crack she had made. He pried. A slab of the cedar peeled away. clattered to the floor. Inside the post, standing upright, wrapped in oiled plastic, 3 heavy gray PVC pipes, sealed with threaded caps. Ronan pulled the first one free. He twisted the cap. It hissed. Vacuum sealed. He tipped the pipe, and out slid a stack, bound with rubber bands. Pristine, cream-colored, intricately printed. The paper was thick. The engraving was fine. And down at the bottom of each one, in beautiful looping script, bearer bond, $100,000, payable to holder. He held one up to the flashlight. His voice went very soft. My God! How much? There are 50 in this stack. Times 3 pipes. If they're all the same denomination. Goldie, this is $5 million. She sat down on the floor. She looked at the money. She thought about the eviction notice on her apartment door. She thought about the $14.32 in her bank account. She thought about the little tube of Crest toothpaste she had bought that morning, sitting forgotten in the console of her Honda Civic outside. She laughed. Not a happy laugh. A hysterical laugh. A cracked, ragged laugh that turned into a sob halfway through. Ronan looked at her with concern. You okay? No. Give me a minute. He gave her a minute. Then she reached for the second pipe. She wanted to hold it. She wanted to feel the weight. She unscrewed the cap. She tipped the pipe. Another stack of bonds slid out into her lap. But there was something else. Stuck to the inside of the pipe with a strip of tape. An envelope. White. Sealed. Small. Written across the front in her uncle's spidery hand. One word. Delilah. Her breath stopped. She peeled the envelope off the pipe. She tore it open. Her fingers were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper. Folded twice. She unfolded it. She read, My sister, if Marigold is reading this, then I could not save you. I am sorry. I tried. I hid your share as we agreed. I have kept it safe for 8 years. But Blackwood's people found me. They will come for the girl next. She will be alone. She will not know who to trust. Marigold, if you are reading this, listen to me. Do not trust anyone, especially not the boy with the bruised jaw. Goldie stopped breathing. She lifted her eyes. Slowly, Ronan was still holding the first stack of bonds. Looking at them, his head was bent. The bruise on his jaw was purple in the flashlight beam. Dark, ugly, fresh. He must have felt her staring. Because he looked up. He saw her face. What? He said. She held out the note. He took it. He read it. She watched his face. And she watched his face fall. Watched it slack. Watched the color leave it. Watched his mouth part slightly. Watched his eyes move over the words again. Slowly. As if he could make them mean something different by reading them harder. He couldn't. Goldie, he said. Stay where you are. Goldie, listen. I have an axe. I see the axe. So stay where you are. He held up both hands. He set the note down on the desk very carefully. He did not move any closer. I'm going to explain, he said. Explain fast. Your uncle gave me this bruise. What? 3 days before he died. I flew out here. I met him. We fought. Not with fists. Not really. It was more of a scuffle. But he hit me. Right here. He touched his jaw. He was 71 years old and he had a right hook that could stop a train. He hit me and he grabbed the ledger and he ran into the woods. That was the last time I saw him alive. You expect me to believe that? I don't expect anything. I'm telling you the truth. The note says. I know what the note says. The note says do not trust. The note was written by a paranoid man who did not know I was on his side. He thought I was my father. He never trusted me. Convenient. Goldie. Very convenient. Look at me. She looked at him. Because she couldn't help it. Because his voice cracked when he said it. Because there was something in his face that no liar had ever been able to fake in the history of the world. He looked wrecked. He looked like a man who had come across a country to save the sister of a woman he had never met. Because it was the one right thing he could still do, and he had just been told by the ghost of that woman's brother that he was the villain in her story. "Goldie," he said quietly, "if I wanted the money, I could have taken it and left. Before you ever saw the pipes, I could have knocked you out with the flashlight. I could have done a lot of things. But you didn't. But I didn't. Why?" He opened his mouth to answer. He never got the chance. Because a red dot appeared on the wall behind his head. Small, bright, perfectly round. It slid across the wall, across the maps, across the shelves, came to rest, directly, in the center of Ronan Blackwood's chest. "Get down!" she screamed. He was already moving. He didn't turn around. He didn't check. He just launched himself across the desk. His body slammed into hers. They hit the floor together. The window shattered. A crack split the air. Sharp. Enormous. It rattled her teeth. The sound came a full second after the bullet did. The bullet buried itself in the oak desk, with a solid, sickening thud, right where Ronan's chest had been, with splinters rained down on them. "Are you hit?" he was shouting. "Are you hit? Goldie, look at me." "No." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Stay flat." "Okay." Another shot. The other window exploded. Glass everywhere. He was on top of her, shielding her body with his. She could feel his heart hammering through his coat. His breath was hot against her ear. "Someone is up on the ridge," he said. "With a rifle. If we go out that door, we die." "Yes. We need to move to the back of the cabin. Crawl. Do not stand up." "Okay. Now." They crawled. They crawled through the shards of glass, through the splinters, past the smashed lockbox, past the ledger, past the photograph of her mother in the leather jacket. Goldie grabbed the ledger as they passed. She grabbed one of the PVC pipes, the one with the letter. She could not carry the rest. 2 more shots came through the front, ate into the walls, chewed into the cedar. Whoever was up there was systematic. Whoever was up there was patient. Whoever was up there was going to keep shooting until they were sure. They made it to the kitchen. Ronan pushed her behind the counter. He crouched beside her. His face was pale. "Listen to me," he said. "There is more I need to tell you, and there is no time." "Then tell me fast. Your mother. What about her?" "She's alive, Goldie." The world stopped. "She's alive. My father has her. He has had her for 8 years. She's being held at a facility in Nevada. Your uncle knew. That's why he never gave up the ledger. It was the only thing keeping her alive. I'm not lying to you. I would never lie to you about this. I've seen the intake paperwork. I stole it from my father's office last spring. Her name is on it. Delilah Whitmore Vance. Room 14. Goldie could not breathe. "My mother is alive." "Yes." She grabbed the front of his coat, not to hit him, to hold him, because she needed something to hold, or she was going to shatter into 1,000 pieces on the floor of her dead uncle's cabin. She grabbed him, and she pressed her forehead against his shoulder. "She didn't leave me. She didn't leave you. She never left me. She never left you." Outside, a voice called through the trees. A man's voice, cold, patient, amused. "Ronan." Ronan's whole body went rigid. "Ronan, I know you're in there." The voice was closer now. He was walking down the ridge, not hurrying. He had them pinned. "You want to come out? Or should we come get you?" "Who is that?" Goldie whispered. Ronan closed his eyes. "Kane Sutter," he said. "My father's man. He's the one they send when there isn't going to be anyone left to talk to afterward." "How many?" "There will be 3, maybe 4. What do we do?" He looked at her. His face, in the moonlight through the broken window, was the face of a man making a decision. He glanced toward the trapdoor she had pried open earlier, the one that led to the crawlspace under the cabin. "Your uncle," he said slowly. was a very careful man. I noticed. He would have had a way out. You think. I know. Come with me. He grabbed her hand. They crawled to the desk. They stared into the hole in the floor. And in the far corner of the gravel pit, half hidden under the joists, Goldie saw it. A trapdoor, old, iron-ringed, rusted at the edges, almost invisible, almost, but not quite. Outside, boots crunched on the gravel driveway. Kane Sutter's voice, closer now. Ronan, you've got about 10 seconds. Ronan looked at her. Goldie looked at the trapdoor. She looked at the PVC pipe in her hand. She looked at her uncle's ledger clutched against her chest. She looked, in her mind, at a woman with dark hair and green eyes standing at a kitchen sink, humming Morning Light in her hair. My mother is alive. Her jaw set. She dropped down into the hole. The trapdoor gave way with a groan. Beneath it, blackness. A steel pipe, corrugated, narrow, slick with mildew, plunged down into the earth at an angle so steep it was almost a slide. And from somewhere very far below, the faint whisper of running water. Go, Ronan said. You first. Goldie, you first. If I go first and you don't follow, I don't know where I'm going. He didn't argue. He dropped his legs over the edge. He looked at her one more time. His face in the moonlight was pale. His jaw set. Stay behind me, he said. Okay. When we hit water, stay low. The creek runs into the Snoqualmie half a mile down. If we can reach the river, we can lose them. Okay. Goldie. What? If something happens to me, you go. You run. You do not stop. She didn't answer. She couldn't. He slid. She heard his coat scrape against the metal. She heard him hit water. A splash. Then his voice muffled, calling up. Clear. She clutched the PVC pipe against her chest. She clutched the ledger. She clutched the little silver locket that had somehow found its way into her pocket. She looked up, at the ceiling of the cabin, at the maps on the walls. Above her, a floorboard groaned. Kane Sutter was inside. She jumped. The slide was longer than she expected, colder than she expected. The metal tore at the elbows of her jacket. She held her breath. For one horrible second she thought she was going to hit solid ground and break every bone in her body. Then her feet punched through freezing water, and the cold shocked the air out of her lungs. She came up gasping. Ronan grabbed her arm. Quiet. Quiet. Head down. They were standing in a narrow ravine, knee-deep in a shallow creek. Ferns and rotted cedar logs hung over them like a green ceiling, choking out the moonlight. The world smelled of wet moss and iron. Above them, on the ridge, the sky was orange. They set the cabin on fire, Ronan whispered. She looked up. Through the ferns she could see it. Flames licking the treetops. Black smoke boiling up into the stars. Her uncle's cabin. Her uncle's whole life. Burning. She wanted to cry. She didn't have time. Move, Ronan said. They moved. They waded downstream. Ronan pulled a small compass from his coat pocket. He glanced at it. He tucked it away. He kept walking. The water was so cold her ankles went numb after the first 100 yards. Her jeans were soaked to the thigh. Her sneakers filled with silt. She kept slipping on the mossy rocks. Ronan caught her elbow each time. He never said a word. He just held her steady. He just kept moving. She thought about her mother. She thought about a hospital room somewhere in Nevada, with the number 14 on the door. I'm coming, Mama. I'm coming. A branch snapped somewhere behind them. Ronan grabbed her, pulled her down. They crouched together behind a mossy boulder. His hand covered her mouth. She could feel his breath against her hair. Fast, controlled. A flashlight beam swept the ravine above them. A voice called out, deep, amused, somewhere close. Spread out. The old man had to have a way out. Find the water. They'll follow it down to the road. Kane Sutter. Goldie stopped breathing. The beam swept once more, twice, then moved on. The boots crunched away upstream. Ronan let out a long, slow breath. He removed his hand from her mouth. "Listen to me," he whispered. "They're going to sweep both directions. We can't stay here." "Okay. They think we'll head down to the highway. So I'm going to give them what they want." "What does that mean?" He turned her to face him. His eyes in the moonlight were dark, very serious. He put both hands on her shoulders. Gentle, firm, the way her father used to when he was about to tell her something hard. "I'm going to break cover," he said. "Draw them upstream, toward the ridge." "No." "Yes." "No, Ronan. Goldie. They'll kill you. They will try. Ronan, listen. Once they follow me, you go downstream. 1/2 mile. You'll come to a logging road. My Tahoe is parked at the switchback. It's armored. Take these." He pressed a set of keys into her palm. The metal was cold. She stared at the keys. "Ronan, no." "Yes. Come with me. They will run us both down. One person can slip away. Two cannot. Not with a $5 million pipe under one arm." "Ronan. Goldie. I owe your mother a life. You never met my mother. My family took her from you. My father. My whole family. My whole life. It's time somebody in the Blackwood name balanced the ledger. Do you hear me?" She was crying now. She didn't know when she had started. The tears were hot on her freezing face. "Please. Contact Agent Hollis Bramwell. FBI Seattle Field Office. He's the only clean one. He'll know what to do with the ledger. He'll help you find her." "Ronan, promise me. Please don't. Promise me, Goldie. I promise." He put his forehead against hers. "Just for a second. Just for a breath. You are not alone," he said. "Do you understand me? Not ever again. You have your mother. You have Bramwell. You have me, if I'm here or if I'm not." She nodded. She couldn't speak. He kissed her forehead. Quick, firm, like a brother would, like a friend, like a man who had run out of time to explain himself. Then he stood up. He turned toward the ridge. He cupped his hands around his mouth. And he screamed. "Hey, Sutter, you looking for me? I'm right here." The response was instant. Shouts, boots, flashlight beams whipping down the ravine like blades. Ronan Blackwood took off running. Up the ridge. Straight into the light. His long coat flapping behind him. He was fast. He knew where he was going. He led them exactly where he wanted them. "Contact!" a voice shouted. Gunfire. A short, brutal burst. Then a longer one. Then silence. Goldie clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. She waited. She waited. She waited. The shots did not resume. But somewhere on the ridge, faint, a voice barked orders. Boots crunched away, up the slope, following what they thought was their target. They were leaving her. She was alone in the ravine. Her whole body was shaking. She wanted to climb up. She wanted to find him. She wanted to know. She had promised. She got up. She waded downstream. She did not look back. She could not look back. Because if she looked back, she would go back. And if she went back, everything Ronan Blackwood had just done for her would be for nothing. Move, she told herself. Move, move, move. She moved. The half-mile felt like 10. She stumbled. She fell. She got up. She stumbled again. Her jeans were stiff with cold. Her hands had gone numb around the PVC pipe. The ledger was pressed against her chest under her jacket. The little silver locket bumped against her collarbone. With every step, she reached the road. It was a rutted logging track. Cracked. We choked. Almost invisible under the moss. And there, parked at the switchback under a big cedar. The Tahoe. Black. Boxy. Enormous. It looked like a piece of the mountain that had decided to wear the shape of a car. She staggered up the embankment. She pressed the fob with numb fingers. The locks thumped open. She wrenched the driver's door and half fell into the leather seat. She pulled the door shut. She locked it, and she just sat. For a long moment, she couldn't move. She could not breathe. She could not think. She just sat there in the dark, holding the pipe, the ledger, the locket, her whole body shaking, so hard the leather seat squeaked underneath her. Then she saw it. On the passenger seat, a laptop, padded envelope, folder, and on top of the folder, a note. She reached for the note with a trembling hand. The handwriting was Ronan's. She recognized it from the license he had shown her. Goldie, if you are reading this, then I have done what I promised your uncle I would do. The laptop has everything. All the accounts, the shell companies, the names. Enough to end my father. The folder is a map. Nevada. Facility called Willow Creek. Private hospital off the books. It's a front. Your mother is in the basement, West Wing, room 14. Guarded around the clock. But every Wednesday at 4 in the morning the shift changes, and there is a 7-minute gap. Give this file to Bramwell. He will know what to do. I prepared this last night. I hoped I wouldn't need to leave it. I am glad, in a way, that it will be waiting for you. You are the bravest person I have ever met. I am sorry I met you at the end of this, and not the beginning. Do not mourn me long. Live. Find her. Bring her home. Ronan. Goldie pressed the note against her mouth. She cried. She cried like she had never cried before. She cried for her mother, for her uncle, for her father, for the 12-year-old girl who had watched her mama walk out into the rain and never come back. For the 18-year-old girl sitting in a dead man's car in the middle of a mountain range in the middle of the night with $5 million on her lap, and no one on earth who knew where she was. She cried until she was empty. Then she wiped her face. She started the engine, and she drove. She drove down the mountain. She drove west on the interstate. She stopped at the first gas station she saw. Paid cash from a small emergency fold Ronan had, of course, left tucked into the sun visor. $200. In small bills. Because he had thought of everything. Everything. She used the payphone bolted to the outside wall. She dialed the number Ronan had written on the folder. FBI Seattle. Ask for Hollis Bramwell. A woman answered. Goldie's voice cracked. She hadn't spoken in 3 hours. I need to speak to Agent Bramwell. Ma'am, it's 4 in the morning. Please. Ma'am, my name is Marigold Vance. There was a silence. A different kind of silence. The kind of silence that comes when a name means something. Miss Vance, the woman said. Please hold. Do not hang up. She waited, her breath fogging in the cold. The phone pressed, so hard against her ear it hurt. A click. A new voice. Male. Older. Calm. So calm it made her want to cry all over again. Marigold. Yes. This is Hollis Bramwell. Ronan told me to call. Where is Ronan? She couldn't speak. Marigold. Where is Ronan? They came for us. He drew them away. I don't know if... I understand, he said. Marigold, listen to me. Where are you right now? A gas station. Off the 90. I don't know the exit. There's a fuel station sign. Stay there. Do not move. I am sending agents. 20 minutes. Yes. Marigold. I have been waiting for this phone call for 8 years. She started crying again. My mother? Yes, Marigold. She's alive. I promise you, she is alive. And we are going to get her back. The agents came in 22 minutes. 2 unmarked SUVs. 4 men and 1 woman. Federal jackets. They moved fast. They moved quiet. They put her in the back of a car, and they drove her at 90 miles an hour straight to a field office in downtown Seattle. Bramwell was waiting. He was older than she had imagined. 60s. Gray hair, close-cropped. A face carved by weather and disappointment. His eyes were blue, and they were kind, not soft. Kind in the way of a man who had seen a lot and refused still to grow cold. He took her into a room. He gave her hot coffee in a paper cup. He put a blanket around her shoulders. He sat down across from her, and he slid a photograph across the table. Black and white. 6 people standing in a row against a brick wall. Late 90s clothing. Government badges around their necks. He tapped the third person from the left. A young woman with long dark hair and green eyes. "That is your mother," he said. "Delilah Whitmore. She joined the bureau at 22. Field agent. Financial Crimes Division. She was one of the best I ever trained." Goldie stared at the photograph. Her mother in an FBI windbreaker. Her mother, 25 years old, before Goldie was born. Her mother, whole, alive, real. "The Pacific Trust job," Bramwell said. "In 1997, that was hers. It was a controlled operation. We needed to trace bearer bonds through a laundering network. Blackwood Properties. Her cover was the inside person. She let the bonds walk. We tracked them for 6 months. And then somebody inside the bureau flipped. Sold her out. To Alistair Blackwood. She had to go dark. She left the bureau. Married your father. Had you? Tried to live a normal life. For 12 years. But she couldn't stop watching. She kept feeding your uncle information. He was her only line to the outside. In 2017, the network started closing back in. She realized they had found her. She met Silas one last time. She gave him the ledger. She told him if she disappeared, he was to hide the bonds. And he was to protect you. He tried. He tried very hard, Marigold. She looked at the photograph. She looked at the young woman with green eyes. Where is she? Facility in Nevada. Private, off the books. Your uncle and I have been trying to prove her location for years. We couldn't get a warrant without alerting Blackwood. Ronan gave you the address. She reached for the folder in the bag they had let her keep. She slid it across the table. Bramwell opened it. He read. His face changed. My God, he said. Marigold, do you understand what this is? He said Wednesday. 4 in the morning. Yes. That's in 3 days. Yes. She sat forward. I want to be there. Marigold. Absolutely not. I am going to be there. This is a federal operation. She's my mother. Agent Bramwell. She is my mother. And I have not seen her face in 8 years. I will sit in a car a mile away with my hands folded in my lap, if that is what you require. But I am going to be there when you bring her out of that building. Are we clear? He looked at her for a long time. Then he smiled. It was a small, tired smile. But it was real. You have your mother's eyes, he said. That's what my father always said. He was right. 3 days later. 2:45 in the morning. A private airstrip outside Reno. The desert was black and flat and enormous. The stars were the biggest Goldie had ever seen. She sat in the back of a black van, with the blanket still around her shoulders. Bramwell sat beside her. 2 agents in tactical gear sat across from her. They did not speak. At 3:53 they moved. The convoy split. The tactical team went in through the front. The rescue team came in through the delivery entrance in back. Goldie waited in the van. She waited. She waited. She counted the seconds. She counted her breaths. She held the little silver locket in her fist, so tightly it left an imprint on her palm. At 4:11 the radio crackled. Subject secured. Repeat. Subject secured. Green light for family reunion. Bramwell turned to her. Come on, Marigold. She could not stand up. Her legs would not work. He helped her out of the van. He walked her across the parking lot. The facility looked like a mid-century office building. Low, concrete, ugly. There were federal agents everywhere now. Cuffs on the guards. A helicopter throbbing overhead. But Goldie saw none of it. She saw only the door at the end of the hallway. She walked, slowly at first, then faster, then running. Bramwell called after her, but she did not stop. She burst through the door, and she stopped, because there, sitting on the edge of a hospital cot, wrapped in a gray blanket, was a woman with gray-streaked dark hair, and green eyes, and a face that Goldie had, For 8 long years, seen only in photographs and dreams. Delilah looked up. Her lips parted. She did not speak. She could not speak. She just stared. Her eyes moved over Goldie's face like a woman touching something she is afraid will disappear. "Mama," Goldie said, came out as a whisper. "Mama." Delilah's face crumpled. Goldie ran to her. She fell to her knees on the tile floor in front of the cot. She wrapped her arms around her mother's waist. She pressed her face against her mother's stomach. Delilah's arms came around her, slowly, trembling, as if she was not sure her arms remembered how. Then her hands were in Goldie's hair. Then she was rocking. Then she was crying. Then they were both crying. On the tile floor, in the basement of a fake hospital in the Nevada desert. At 4 in the morning, holding each other so tightly it hurt. "My baby," Delilah said, over and over. "My baby, my baby, my baby. Mama, you're so big. I'm 18. You look just like a woman." Goldie pressed her forehead into her mother's shoulder. She breathed in. Her mother smelled different than she remembered. Institutional soap. Cheap detergent. Not the lavender and vanilla of Goldie's childhood. But underneath, there was still her. Still Mama. "I never left you," Delilah whispered. "I know now. I know. I would never have left you, Goldie. I know, Mama." 3 weeks passed. They passed in a blur. Alistair Blackwood was arrested on a Tuesday morning at his estate outside Bellevue. The federal indictment ran to 217 pages. Money laundering, kidnapping, conspiracy. He tried to run. He got as far as his private hangar. Then the agents were on him. Blackwood Properties collapsed within a week. The shell companies unraveled. The offshore accounts were frozen. Every board member who had laughed at Ronan 3 years earlier was now, one by one, taking their turn in Bramwell's interview room. Kane Sutter was in custody. Goldie moved into a small rental house in Tacoma with her mother. 2 bedrooms, a yard with a rose bush, a porch that faced west so they could watch the sunset. Delilah took long baths. She slept a lot. She stood at the kitchen sink in the mornings and hummed hymns, and sometimes Goldie would come up behind her and put her arms around her waist and just breathe. They did not talk about the 8 years yet. Not yet. There would be time. There would be so much time. Cordelia sent 1 letter. Goldie did not open it. She burned it in the fireplace, and she did not think about it again. The $5 million in bearer bonds sat in a federal evidence locker. Bramwell sat down with Goldie on a rainy Thursday and told her that, legally, the bonds were now hers. She could cash them. She could invest them. She could do whatever she wanted. She thought about it. She thought about it for a week. She sat with her mother on the porch. She sat with Bramwell. She prayed. She wrote in a little notebook. She looked at herself in the mirror and asked the question out loud. "What kind of woman are you going to be, Marigold Vance?" The next Monday she called Bramwell. She told him to give it away, every dollar, to a foundation for the children of trafficking survivors, to a scholarship fund for the daughters of missing mothers, to a shelter in Tacoma for teenage girls who had nowhere to go. She kept exactly one thing. She kept enough to enroll herself in the spring in the University of Washington, social work major, because she was going to do this for a living now. She was going to be the person she had needed when she was 12. The morning she made the decision, her mother caught her in the kitchen. Delilah cupped her face in both hands. She kissed her forehead. "Your grandmother used to say," Delilah whispered, "that money only means something when it's given away. I know. You are so much like her. I know. I am so proud of you." Goldie leaned into her mother's shoulder. She did not cry. She had cried enough for a lifetime, she thought. But it turned out she had not cried enough. Because on a Thursday in April, 3.5 weeks after Nevada, Goldie was standing at the little cemetery outside Snoqualmie. Rain was misting down. Everything was green and gray. She had brought white roses. She laid them on Silas Whitmore's grave. Thank you, she said, in her head, but she meant it aloud. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. She answered. A voice she had never expected to hear again. Weak, hoarse, but warm, achingly warm. You still owe me that cup of coffee. She stopped breathing. Ronan. Hi, Goldie. Ronan. I know. You are dead. I am aware I appear to be dead. You are supposed to be dead. There was a SWAT team on the ridge that night. Bramwell had eyes on the property. From the moment you called Finch's office. They got to me. They got me to a helicopter. I lost a lot of blood. I've been in an ICU in Portland for 3 weeks. Bramwell kept it dark. My father still had people out there. It wasn't safe until now. She sat down on the wet grass next to her uncle's grave. She did not care that it was wet. She just laughed. She laughed into the phone like a woman who had been holding her breath for a very long time. Ronan. Goldie. You are alive. I am. I hate you. I know. I don't hate you. I know that too. When can I see you? They're releasing me tomorrow. I could drive up, if that's... Yes, tomorrow. Come tomorrow. Okay. Ronan. Yes. Is she home? Yes. Good. He came the next day. He was thinner. His arm was in a sling. There was a fresh scar along his temple. But he was standing on the front porch when she opened the door. In the light of a Tacoma sunset. He looked at her. She looked at him. Then Delilah came up behind Goldie in the doorway. Delilah looked at Ronan Blackwood. Ronan looked at her. And for the second time in a month, Marigold Vance watched her mother lift her hands to a stranger's face and cry. Thank you, Delilah whispered to him. Ma'am, thank you for bringing my daughter home. They sat on the porch that night, all 3 of them, wrapped in blankets, watching the sun go down over the sound. The rose bush in the yard was starting to bud. A neighbor's wind chime was singing. Ronan had a mug of coffee balanced on his knee. Delilah had a cup of tea. Goldie had nothing in her hands. She had her mother's hand in one of hers, and Ronan's hand in the other. Can I ask you something? Ronan said. If you could go back. Yeah. If you could go back to that day. The letter came. The lawyer's office. Would you open the door of that cabin again, knowing what was inside? Goldie thought about it. She thought about the maps and the deadbolts and the empty tin cans in perfect rows. She thought about the smashed lockbox under the desk. She thought about the moment she saw her mother's face in a Polaroid from 1997. She thought about the ravine, the cold water, the red dot on Ronan's chest, the scream of a rifle, the hand that pushed her out of the way. She thought about a hospital cot in the Nevada desert, and a woman with green eyes. She squeezed her mother's hand. She squeezed Ronan's. Yes, she said softly. Yes, because it brought me back to her. The wind chime moved. The sun sank into the water. And somewhere, in the way that some prayers are answered years after they are prayed, Marigold Vance came home to herself. The end.